with just part of their fingers, if you get my drift. So always the clowns. I can't believe it. Hey, it's Captain Ron here and his trusty band of sidekicks here. Dieter Stouting here, our trusty chief technical officer. We need him more than we do for first officer, that's for sure. And Eric Larson down there. And if it were crushed for time, they just become Derek. So I will do that from time to time. It has nothing to do with my age. So anyway, hey, thanks for checking in with us. It is Tuesday night, and therefore it's Fearless Flight Live. We're happy to be here with you. Hopefully you caught my 2 little mini broadcasts earlier in the day, and you've come packed with questions because we are putting you on notice. We are going on strike. We are not going to do all the work this year. We are letting that some of that be done with you, and that includes we want to get this show moving. We want to get into more of a podcast format where we have a call in, lots more activity out there. We want to hear your problems. Gosh, you guys send them to me privately, so the least you could do is send them to us in the group there, because that's what this is for. This is for you. This whole thing that we're doing here is for you. It's for anybody who's afraid to fly, who knows somebody is afraid to fly, or if you just flat kind of like flying in airplanes like the 3 of us do. We do this live streaming show every week. It goes out live over Facebook and YouTube, and we're happy to have all of you with us tonight. So we need to, even tonight, don't be bashful. Bring those questions to us, and so we can deal with them during the course of the show. Okay. Tonight, we got a poll question, and then we got our Birds of a Feather success story. If you haven't joined Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather, we'll give you some more information on that in just a minute. Eric's got a couple of stories from in our aviation news roundup, and we're going to talk a little bit about our Flying Over Water online masterclass coming up on February 2nd. Eric and I were just fine-tuning the content today, working up some cool graphics, and if you have any issues with flying over water, and they're numerous, they're usually related to the fact what I'm going to do over the water if something goes wrong, and or it just means usually flying a long time. And flying over water is a misnomer. We'll tell you why if you tune into us on February 2nd. So, okay, with that, let's move on. Let's expose our poll question here.
Yep. I'm just
can you see it? Oh, there we go. And it is my level of comfort and competency using smartphones, tablets, and computers is, pick a number between 0 and 10. 0 is down there. That's where you have to rely on the 15-year-old in your neighborhood for everything you do, from turning it on to turning it off. And 10 means you could help Captain Ron with his technical skills. We're doing that because we realized after all these years that, you know what, probably a third of the issues that we have getting our information out to people is getting them access to it. And that ranges for everything from joining our new hub, which we're going to be talking a lot more about coming up in the near future, where it'll become a lot easier to get access. But we found out that a lot of people, when we go to troubleshooting, everything from like using multiple email addresses in our system gets confused over where you are, and sometimes, believe it or not, people misspell their email address, and guess what? That doesn't go anywhere when we try to reply, but it gets put into our system, and then once it's in our system, now we can't correct it sometimes, which we've learned from the system we use. So we got problems on that end too. But anyway, Dieter has come up with a really, really good set of videos, and he's broken them down into little bitty clips so that you don't have to listen forever. Because if you're like me, if you get more than 30 seconds into it, now you got to go back and remember what your name was. And so I think the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Dieter, and he's going to describe what each of these little videos are, how you'll be able to get to it, so that now you'll be able to go there before, to prevent you from getting lost as we expand our website and our online presence. So go ahead, Dieter.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we really do a lot is troubleshoot or help people get the content that we are streaming on our, if you have the FearlessFlight kit, or if you are part of our membership, either the free or the higher levels of our membership. And we always, troubleshoot technical problems like, how do I get those files on my iPhone? Now, we got some really great news, and I'm just going to switch over to the shared screen here. Since the arrival of iOS, so that's the operating system for your iPhone or your iPad, since version number 13 has come out, Apple finally allows us to download any kind of file that has been allowed to be downloaded by the creator. So for example, it doesn't work with YouTube links because YouTube doesn't allow downloading. So what we did is we really sat down and thought about what would help you the most, like, because you're in this unique situation where you actually need the files that we provide for you, whether it's a FearlessFlight kit, or we got some free Cleared for Takeoff 101 classes for you. If you want those on your device, now you don't have to use any third-party app anymore. And that is a great improvement because it makes the whole process so much easier. And that's why we created these 6 little videos. We're going to have it on a page, and I'm going to share the link before or at our next FearlessFlight live show next week. But that should really help you with your comfort level when you go on your flight. And speaking of comfort level, Jim Duke, hey Jim is at a 10 plus. So if we ever run into any issues helping Ron, we're gonna call Jim. Guy. Yeah, we're gonna call you Jim. Cheryl,
and he's only 14 going on 80. I heard, so that's why he's so good at that. So,
and Cheryl said she's at a 7. So the ones that are sharing their knowledge about smartphones and tablets and computers are the ones that are good at it, I can see so far. So don't be shy. Let us know. The poll question is, how well can you navigate, the technology that you have with you, meaning your smartphone or your tablet. Okay, so those 6 videos range from how to download any file, how to update your device to iOS 13, because you need that so that you can download it. And then how to find your files on your device once you have downloaded them, so when you need them. And also what happens if you forgot your password, where to go and what to do. So we've covered all of these. And then lastly, how to enable and play your files in airplane mode, meaning when you're on a flight, you don't have Wi-Fi or you don't have a network connection, data connection, you can still watch or listen or read the files from our product or from our members hub. So is there anything, I mean, we just wanted to
I was just going to say,
that.
Again, just to conceptualize this for people who aren't that familiar, everybody knows about the cloud, or at least the term the cloud. But what the cloud is it's like holding places up here in the air for files. Used to be more of us use computers, and we'd have peripheral devices, we'd have hard drives and stuff. And then the data explosion, information explosion started to take place. And now, you need your own server to hold all your own data. So then people started offering places up in the cloud. And so when mobile comes around, we're probably 60, 70 people don't even use computers anymore. This is their only computer. So now we needed a way to get from up there down to here. And we always had, as Dieter said, we always had to kind of jury rig it because for Apple devices, whereas you Android users were ahead of the curve because you could download it much more easily than we could on Apple devices. But now with that iOS change, so like Dieter said, you've got to get your iPhone up to date first. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to use even our instructions there. But once you do that, and all of you who already have the FFK, if you change phones or if you restore it and you don't get the hub back on there with the FFKs on there, you'll have to access these as well to get it back on there. So okay, cool. Dieter, and man, he spent a lot of work on that. So we want to make sure that you guys all get.
I do want to acknowledge something, because we inevitably, here's what happens. We got some really, really smart people in our community, and it usually is another source of shame when we're anxious, when we're nervous, we don't have quite access to the same brain power, because we're in the fight or flight, and so therefore our body feels it's under attack and reduces the
your brain, your cognitive function
reduces the
goes
capacity.
away. Yeah.
And so then the problem is, when you're already anxious and you want to now download, or get the files on your device, chances are you're not as thorough, not as have not the same clarity as you would if you were to do that in a more relaxed setting at home, for example. And so that's why it's really important, because it's another one of those sources of shame. And as we discuss a lot here on the show, fear of flying is an anxiety disorder, and one of the things that keeps people from getting the help that they need is feeling embarrassed and feeling like
so we don't want it accessible and you not be able to do it, like Captain Ron, who said, oh, I'll just put I'll download the American app. Nope, you got to download the American app before you get to the airport so you can use it to get onto the American app when you're on the airplane. And so painful lessons like that. So anyway, okay, all right,
let's move on. We got this great story, and I'm just gonna share my screen again. So basically, if you don't know about our Birds of a Feather Facebook group, that is the group for you to join if you are afraid to fly, or if you support somebody who is afraid to fly. And so one of our awesome members, Janice, flew from San Diego to the UK, to Heathrow, and I don't know where your journey took you, Janice, but she's been part of our group for a while, and the posts leading up to her first flight especially, got so much love, so much support. And so this Facebook post that you're seeing is actually from when she returned back to San Diego, and it's just amazing. We got 36 comments. I love being part of this community. I don't know how I'd done my recent trip without the shared support, resources, etc. Thought of you all both when I was petrified and crying at the airport, and then also when I sat very relaxed, enjoying the views out of my plane during my 11-hour flight. I took lots of pictures and videos. And so if you're not part of the group, I will post a link, and I can see that a very strange, hold on. I'm just noticing.
We got a view within a view within a view.
The infinity view. So just give me a second here, and I will see if I can. Oh, we just caught Captain Eric. What are you drinking tonight, Eric?
Yeah.
I have a
there we go.
A big gulp cup.
Oh, you got a big gulp. Is that any better?
Yeah. Now we've got just a slide.
Okay, cool. So now everybody can actually see it.
Yeah.
And so what I really wanted to point out is the community aspect. Debbie Rupley. Hi, Debbie. Quick shout out. You are watching. She says she's a newbie and commented today. If you didn't catch the poll question, it was, how comfortable are you with technology on a scale of 0 to 10? So if you can just put that in, 0 means not at all, and 10, yeah, I got this. And I just also wanna invite you, Debbie, to kind of like share in the comments with you if you're part of the Birds of a Feather Facebook group, and if you are, what are the things that you have noticed in the group? Because it's really important to us to have a supportive, nurturing environment where people feel safe and can express themselves, and also can get I'm gonna say appropriate advice, but more than that, more importantly, is experiences from other people that helped them, and sharing that, because there's always a nugget in there. And the cool thing is, I'm gonna show, this is Janice and the pilots, and Janice, I may look relaxed here, but I was literally shaking and couldn't follow much of what they were explaining to me. So nice of them to do that. So that is just super, super cool.
So it's the same connection that she makes with people in the group that she makes with the pilots. And that's why I recommend you need to fess up and own the fact that you're a little bit nervous. Make sure you go through pre-boarding so you qualify for that. If you have any questions, send us a message to ask about that. We got a little script that we take you through. And when you get down to the flight attendants that greet you on getting on the airplane, you say, hey, I'm a little nervous about flying. Could I meet the pilots? When you get up to meet the pilots, you say, I'm a little nervous about flying. Anything you can tell me today, I would appreciate. And it doesn't matter whether you're nervous. That's the whole point. You want to connect to those people up there like Eric, who are just as human as you are, and they have just as much of an investment in that flight as you do. And you need to see that and take it out of the detached mode that most airline passengers get on, where you're in the back and there's some robots up front, and see the real people flying up there. And connection, social connection, is what drives us, and it's what gives us confidence. It's what increases our resilience. Many of you are either embarrassed or afraid to contact the people sitting next to you. That's another group of people that you need to connect with. And plus, you need to find appropriate ways to do that. So connection is what it's all about. So join the Facebook Birds of a Feather group, like Dieter said, and you're on the next step to working through this.
Okay, perfect. Are we ready to move on to the aviation news roundup for the week?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, there's one other thing here that came in just as a messenger from Debbie. You mentioned Debbie just is a late joiner there. Okay. And she says she's scheduled for her first flight on January 31st, and she's freaking out. Someone just told me that you can physically feel the difference in the pressure during flight, but she felt like her head was being squeezed and that she was short of breath. This is adding to my panic substantially. Is this true? Hey, of course it's going to add to your panic, because the story that you're telling yourself is, I'm feeling something that I'm not familiar with, and it can't be good. Why? Because you're biased towards protecting your survival instinct is doing what it thinks it's supposed to do. Remember that part about their brain that I told you about, called the amygdala? It's like a smoke detector. Okay, if you have a smoke detector in your house and it doesn't know whether the toast is burning or whether there's a full-fledged roaring fire on the stove, okay, its job is to alert you. That's the way the amygdala does, and that's what's going on here with Debbie. So what does she need? She needs a little more information. So Debbie, feel free to sign up for a free 15-minute coaching session if you haven't already, and we can at least answer a little bit more of those questions there. But basically, and Eric may want to weigh in on this. Yeah, you feel pressure because when we go to altitude, we don't want we don't want the cabin to be at 35,000 feet if the outside of the airplane is 35,000 feet, because your head would explode. And not your head literally, but your internal trapped evolved gases in there would explode because they expand because of the low pressure. So we keep the airplane just a little bit above the altitude of Denver all the way. Now, if you have anything going on in your ears, if you have a slight cold or any kind of blockage or anything like that, you're going to notice the pressure more, but it's normal for the trapped air inside your middle ear to want to get out as you climb, because it's trying to escape. It's like a balloon trying to blow up. And then when you reverse and you descend, it's trying to work its way back in there. So that pressure can be noticeable to you. And again, when you're super anxious, hypervigilant, hypersensitive, like you are when you're under anxiety, all that stuff gets blown out of proportion. End of story. So Debbie, sign up for a 15-minute coaching session if you're comfortable with that. Even if you're not comfortable, we'll worry about that when you get there. But go ahead and do that. Take care of yourself and get some answers. So you don't. There's no reason to start your flight with that kind of anxiety already going on. All right. The news roundup. Okay, before I so rudely interrupted myself, it is.
Put the slide up. Okay, so hold on.
Okay, do you have a slide for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Put the first one up there, and I've got the other tidbits there too. So Eric, talk to us about what just happened earlier today.
So I bet a lot of our viewers saw this because you're very good at looking for validation for reasons of why you wouldn't fly and current reasons. And sometime in the last 5, 6, 7 hours, an airliner departed Los Angeles International LAX for Shanghai. It was a twin jet airliner, and they had an engine problem and determined their best course of action was to return right away to Los Angeles to land. And in the overwater long distance realm, there's a lot of fuel on the airplane. And one of the places they put a lot of the fuel on the airplane is in the wings. And so when the airplane decided to go back, the airplane, big airliners like that can take off far in excess of what the manufacturer has recommended as their maximum structural landing weight. So that being said, when they're going to go back and land right away, they had intended to burn tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds of gas before they landed in Shanghai. This is a great picture. Before they landed in Shanghai, and just in minutes they were going back to Los Angeles International. And many of the airliners are equipped with a fuel jettisoning system, whereby fuel can be dumped from the wing tanks for just this sort of situation. They're going back. They can dump the fuel, lighten the aircraft weight down to a weight they want for landing. It is recommended. I'm reaching the back of my brain just from memory. We would have a checklist for it, but I'm pretty sure our checklist says complete fuel dumping at an altitude no lower than 5,000 feet above the ground. The idea being, if the fuel dump is performed above that altitude, the fuel will atomize/vaporize, and no liquid fuel will reach the ground. And evidently what happened here in the excitement or heat of battle, which can be pretty exciting if you think you just lost one of your engines and you're returning for an emergency landing, evidently they did not terminate fuel dumping. And so at a fairly low altitude, they were still dumping fuel on final, and dumped a bunch of it in a neighborhood short of the runway in Los Angeles. One of the places being a schoolyard with a bunch of kids outside that didn't get a tremendous amount, but got sprayed, and their lungs burned a little bit and ruined their outfits. And they did notice the good hit of moisture coming into the schoolyard. And it's not good for you on a long-term sort of basis to be inhaling fuel vapor, but it's not bad. I shudder to think how much fuel vapor Ron and I, jet fuel vapor Ron and I have inhaled over the years, and there's obviously nothing wrong with us. But the airplane
that
did
we would
land.
admit to, at least.
Yeah, they did land without a vent. Nobody hurt in the airliner, so that's good. And except for some skin irritation and lung burning.
Yeah, those are minor, just precautionary. That's what I've been reading. So it's just
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity. There's a lot here for a little bit of this, a little bit of everything here. Okay. So you got the media. So the media is designed to catch anything that's going to make a good headline, and they're going to start with things that are of interest to you because they're rare. So an airliner losing an engine is rare, and even more rare is dumping fuel at a lower altitude. So that's a big thing there. So what do you need to remember about this? Number one, every one of those people on an airplane were safe and secure all the way from the takeoff all the way to the landing. The crew's training paid out. For whatever reason, they forgot to turn off the fuel dump, but it didn't jeopardize anybody except obviously some people on the ground. But they'll all get attention and whatnot there. Question, Eric, can you dump fuel on your airplane?
The 757, no. It's certified.
So rule of thumb, how would I know if I'm a passenger? Not that I would really want to know. How do I know if I can dump fuel on my airplane?
I guess if I was a passenger, if it's a really, really big airplane going transcon, probably can.
So like
I'm thinking more. I'm
777?
thinking more than 6 seats across, right?
Yeah, the seven.
If it's a wide body airplane and it has more than 3 seats on each side with an aisle,
That's probably a good rule.
yeah, you can probably dump it.
The
Yeah.
7.6 can dump fuel, and the 7.5 does not need to. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the reason is because a big airplane, this isn't a big airplane. This is a big little airplane. The big airplanes have so much fuel on there. The fuel can weigh as much as the airplane when they're fully tanked and going a long distance, like to Shanghai. So why can you taxi then if you can't land with it like that? Well, when you're taxiing, there's only 1 G. Okay, just gravity. When you're landing though, and you're coming down, now you have downward momentum. So when the wheels actually touch with some force, now you have more than 1 G. So the fuel in the airplane weighs more than it did when you taxied out not in theory, but in practice because of gravity. So that's why fuel is allowed to be dumped on a big airplane. We used to be, many of the airplanes could dump fuel, even the smaller ones like a 727. But when we went through the 1970s and the Arab-Israeli war, where the fuel got really scarce because the Arabs cut us off, then we went to all this. And then you almost had to get an act of Congress to dump fuel because of the waste that would go on. But after that, then they realized, okay, we built these new airplanes, wide body, and so those are the only ones that don't.
So let me just ask you this, guys, because I'm just kind of reading the comments and also some of the things that have come up. So there are rules in general. There's rules about when and how much fuel you need to dump before you're cleared to land. Correct? Is that
correct?
Okay. So it's not kind of like the pilot just
hey, let's dump some fuel today.
Yeah, let's dump some fuel. So there are things in place now. Obviously, there's humans involved, and wherever we are involved, there's a room for an error. And do we know for sure like what actually happened, Eric? I mean, we know what happened, but why it happened?
No.
Okay.
We don't have any of the details that went into their reasoning for the turn back and what kind of a problem, if it was of very urgent nature or they were down one engine, but everything else is normal. We don't know any of that.
So we will learn that in the coming days, and then we can update everybody next week.
So I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, and we did not have clothes dryers in those days. My mom used the clothesline all the time. And there were 4 major arrival fixes into O'Hare Airport, which was about 70 miles to the northwest of us. And we would actually see, this is back in the 60s, we would see them holding overhead, okay, probably 10, 12,000 feet. And my mom was convinced when she would see pigeon doo-doo on her sheets that they had opened the lab and flushed the toilets and dumped the waste up there. All the time growing up until I was hired by an airline in 1978. I did not know for sure that they do not dump their waste in the air. We take that out by a truck that comes up and pulls it out just like you would at your camper. So we don't want any myths going out there about fuel dumping, and we certainly want to kill any myths out there about dumping the labs over your laundry hanging on the line. Okay. What else?
Do you want to talk? So the next thing we gotta talk about is our upcoming flying over water online masterclass, and so basically it's for anybody who is a little nervous or nerve-wracked flying over water, which would be the case if you want to go to Hawaii, to Europe, or anywhere in Asia, really. So I would just wanted to ask Captain Eric, will you be on there on February 2nd? Can we?
Yes.
Awesome. So that means for this online masterclass, we have both Captain Ron and you, Captain Eric, there to answer, because we got a lot of questions about flying over water. So what is it about flying over water, Ron, that has so many people?
Well, two main things. It's what happens if something goes wrong, and then there's a lingering fear in a lot of people that certainly flying that long, I'm pushing my luck. So this is for everybody. Anybody out there who does have anxiety over flying over water and or is worried about flying 2 hours versus 3 hours versus 8 hours or whatever. So you need to come to this class. We guarantee you will have confidence about just exactly how much effort we go to not only fly airplanes, but to fly airplanes in a safe way over an extended period of time. And like I said, you're going to learn one secret right off. We call it flying over water, but the rules that we're talking about do not pertain to just flying over water. They pertain to other things out there, and you're going to learn all of that stuff there. So you can see the bullets up there. What do we do if we have an emergency? Well, we plan for them in advance, basically. How do we find a safe place? We already knew that, and you're gonna see how we know what we're gonna do. Eric was commenting to me today. He said one of the things that's interesting is we actually, in many ways, flying over water is easier because we have specific profiles that we know wherever we are every instant of the flight, we know what we're going to do if we need to go, if something happens and we need to go to somewhere other than our destination. So we're going to talk about reducing your anxiety and claustrophobia because that's a big part of anybody flying over water. And we're going to help you create your own flight plan on how to get by this. It's going to be targeted for an hour. There's going to be Q&A built into it. You're going to have access to me and the team, including Dieter and Eric. You're going to gain the confidence that you need. Remember, overcoming fear of flying takes two areas of confidence. One, that it's safe, basically, to fly in airplanes and in the system. And two, that you're safe. You won't lose control when you're in the airplane and we close the door.
Okay? And I want to make a really important, just you may or may not be familiar with online master classes. So basically, because Jim already said, I will be on the water headed to Hilo that day with no internet. So that was a perfect segue. So if you can't attend live, we, in fact, when you sign up, we're going to ask you your most burning question that you want Captain Ron and Captain Eric to answer but we will also make a replay available to you and only to you when you are signing up for the Flying Over Water class. So if you can't attend live, you still sign up. Make sure that you get all the information in the replay that we'll make available. But obviously, if you can, this would be a perfect, like Captain Ron said. I mean, my story is this. I know Ron likes to, you'd like to share that we met on an online forum. So, which is absolutely true. But the reason.
That's the forums that you didn't meet on.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. But the reason why I am here, or one of the reasons why I'm here, is because you, Ron, were able to help Rebecca, my wife, to overcome her fear of flying over an ocean, which was pretty crucial because we wanted to get married in Austria, which we did.
And why do these people keep marrying people who live far away? I mean, I got people in Australia that his wife is from Germany as well. So, yeah.
And I believe, Janice, if you're watching, then please let me know, because I don't remember exactly, but she didn't fly. She didn't go back home, I think, to England since 1993. So,
yeah.
So that's how long she couldn't visit or connect with any family back in her homeland unless they came over to San Diego, I guess.
Yeah,
which isn't a bad place to go. But again, we're talking about being free to choose to fly and being able to manage your emotions, your mental dialogue, and your experience while you are flying. And oh my God, we have a fellow Canadian watching. Hey, Vivian. That's so cool. With Vivian's from Toronto tuning in. So yeah, I'm just gonna put that next slide up because it has the
link.
And the link, yeah. So
Yeah.
and I'll put the link in the description as well.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so let's talk about the research study. For those of you, people are steadily showing up for our. Well, there's the link for the masterclass, and then the research study. Thanks to everybody who's filled it out. If you want, we're getting close to doing an online webinar for anyone who has completed the survey. So if you want to get in on the data that we've got, make sure that you go on board and take that. It's interesting, if I do say so myself, and I think you're going to find the results fascinating. And so when we get this put together, we'll share all the results with you, and it'll be interesting to compare. I'll be able to compare to 15 years ago, basically, when I ran this for the first time. So let's see, the big smart we're talking about. Yeah, let me. I haven't.
Yeah, so we're almost at the threshold.
Yeah.
Of nationally representative, so which is really exciting. I mean, we're not quite at our goal, but if you haven't taken that survey, it's you know what is it? It's less than 10 minutes. So
yeah, 10 minutes, and it's great data. It'll
Yeah.
actually perform kind of an assessment for you. You'll get some insights as to where some of the issues are that you have with that. So please go over there if you haven't done it. And we're selecting a person to get a free coaching session, aren't we, Dieter?
Just for participating in the study, you will be entered into a draw for a 1 hour, a 60-minute coaching session with Captain Ron. So there's obviously something hopefully in it for you. And lastly, you're very welcome, Lane. I appreciate you commenting. And again, the most important thing is, even if you're watching this after we have gone off the air, put your comments into the thread of this video, because periodically we do come back to and we answer questions, and more importantly, we'll take those questions and then they build, the core of our show next week. So it's really, you're going to get out of it as much as you put into it. So if you want to ask a question but think, but that might be stupid, or everybody, everybody may know this, and I won't say it. This is a prime example of how that anxiety inside of you is working. And this is a really cool place. There's just a comment from Vivian. I take trips home to the UK to see all my family when I emigrated many years ago. I loved flying, no problems. And now, not so much. Takeoff causes me the highest anxiety. Captain Eric, do you want to say anything about takeoff? Just as it is, let's not talk around the bush. If somebody wants to find out what are the most dangerous parts of flying, it's takeoff and landing, right?
That's statistically it. And we've, in our advanced and even our primary class, we talk about our takeoff performance analysis. Every takeoff is, in the example of a 2-engine jet, planned for an engine failure at the most critical point, so that we can either stop the airplane on the runway or continue the takeoff, climb out, and fly away on one engine and return for a landing. So we do that performance assessment for every runway we're going to use, every temperature condition, every meteorological condition, whether the runway's wet, contaminated, everything else. So we don't, before we go, we know exactly what we're going to do, what our performance requirements are. We're not guessing, saying, the guys in front of us made it just fine. But it's funny that your Janice, was that her name?
No, that was
Vivian.
Vivian just asked the question.
We're probably at close to our peak stress level for takeoff too, because we're paying such rapt attention to what's happening during that very small period of time. And with the time compression there, if we have to make a decision, it will be a rapid one. Whereas if we're up high, we have the luxury of more time to make a decision, more altitude, more options, that sort of thing. So we're generally not stressed at all, and we're stressed very little during landing usually.
Yeah, and the cure for takeoff or landing anxiety, like much of it, that is a cortex trigger. That means it starts from thinking, your brain, and that is the core of anticipatory anxiety. It's a cortex trigger. So you start thinking, what if, and until you get enough knowledge about what if, you're going to come up with what if and the worst possible outcomes. And if you fly your next flight, and all that you're thinking of was how miserable you were in your last flight, it's probably going to be miserable again. So you've got to do something. So I've had a number of people writing in there. They haven't flown in a while, and now they're getting anxious. And they wonder what to do about it. Basically, you do the same things you did before. And so if you did coaching or you need to do some coaching, come back to us and sign up.
We also have a free expert guide to takeoff and turbulence.
Yeah.
That's a 30-page guide that really goes into detail about all the different aspects of it. Yeah. And then we also have an audiobook, so that you can download to your device.
Which is the next, is that, do we still have the sale price on?
When you opt in to the free guide, we do offer you a discount, on the audiobook.
Okay.
So those are resources, both free, and then if you want to go deeper and more multi-sensory, get yourself the audiobook. We got great feedback for that, and more than anything, just stay in connected and involved in the community. You do, and I touched on it earlier. We're as maybe next week, I'm putting together a focus group, and we're getting ready to launch the membership site, and that's going to not only encourage you, but it's going to make it possible for you to stay connected in a much more meaningful way. If you don't, the less you fly, the more you need to stay connected to people out there, to stay in the jargon, stay in the mood, keep participating with the Birds of a Feather group. And basically it's connection, and it's the way we're wired socially to get support and give support to each other. So, all right, anything else before we wrap this up tonight? No, that's it. And Vivian, I'm just gonna put the link to the free guide in the comments after the show.
Okay.
That was
okay. I had one more thing. I had my new device. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to keep you in suspense until next week. So next week we'll talk about this thing that I was wearing on the bike today. Dieter hasn't seen it yet, but we'll talk about this. This is one of the greatest tools I think you could have, resources, as a fearful flyer. And I'll keep you in suspense until next week. Matter of fact, we'll try to come up with a contest so we can give one of these away. All right?
That's absolutely.
Yeah. So next week we'll talk about this, and because it's going to lead into some other another thing that I want to talk about next week.
You sure look like a pirate, Captain Ron.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. Maybe if you wear it like
this bicycling for your health is going to end badly.
Exactly.
Not a question of if.
All right. No. So thanks to Eric, thanks to Dieter again, and thanks to you all out there for watching us again this week. Fearless Flight Live. Without you, it wouldn't be possible. Well, without you, it'd be crazy for us to sit there and talk amongst ourselves. We can do that anytime we want. So thanks for coming back. Tell everybody else about it. If they're afraid to fly, know somebody, or they just like to talk about flying a little bit, and come and learn something with us. So have a great week, everybody, and happy landings.
See you next Tuesday.